Hi, it's Chris with Implied Music, and I'm here to talk about Satin Doll. Satin Doll, Duke Ellington's great jazz standard. It's a song, but it's more than that. It's an exploration of 2/5 chord progressions. Now, 2/5 chord progressions are really important to understanding the American songbook and jazz standards. And they also have a big place in just kind of educating yourself about functional harmony. Well, I joke that I learned everything I need to know about functional harmony from Ellington, but it's really kind of not a joke. So Ellington wrote maybe 1,000 songs, and with his band and his co-writer Billy Strayhorn, really sort of set the tone for a certain style of American songbook, songs. And that style comes directly out of the Western European school of functional harmony, tonic dominant relationships that are used to shape the arc of the song, to create a sense of narrative, tension and release, drama, all the things that are part of any good artistic work. In Western classical music, a big part of the dynamic of that tension and release comes from the tonic dominant relationship. And Satin Doll has 5 different 2/5 pairs. We're going to talk about what a 2/5 pair does for us in a second. 5 different ones pointing to 5 different key levels in the course of a 32 measure song. Well worth taking a look at. It's not that hard a song, although it does have 5 different 2/5 pairs. Listen, quick review. If you're in the key of C, your 1 chord is C. So that's C, E, G, and I'm going to play a B a lot of the time, C major 7. 1, the 2 chord is D minor 7. E minor 7, I love the major 4, it's a major 7 chord. And then when I get to G, that's the 5/7, and that really wants to resolve to C. The 5/7 wants to resolve to the 1 major. And I'll tell you what, there's a chord that wants to go to the 5/7. That chord is 2. So D minor 7 really wants to go to G7, which really wants to go to C. That's a 2-5-1 progression. 2, 5, 1. And 2/5 pairs are an enormous part of songwriting, starting, in the American songbook anyway, but it goes right back to how tonic dominant relationships were used in Baroque, early classical, even late classical music, all the way right up until the Romantic period. And then again in songwriting, we see it in the 60s. We see it in the Beatles. We see it in soul, neo-soul, lo-fi. Here, this is what Ellington does. It's so canny because he begins his song on 2, D minor 7, and then 5, G7. And you'd expect to go to C, but no, another 2/5 pair. And this 2/5 pair is E minor 7, A7, E, A, the 2 of D, the 5 of D. It's like we're in D for a second. And then, just for good measure, another 2/5 pair, A minor 7, D7, that's 2/5 in the key of G. And then he doesn't stop there because the next thing is 2/5 in the key of D flat major 7, which sinks us finally back down to C. The whole thing flows so beautifully. That's, let's see, C, D, G, D flat. 4 different key levels right there for us. In the bridge, he goes to the 4 chord, just like the Beatles would. That's 2-5, G minor 7, C7 to F. 2-5, G minor 7, C7, F. Now, we've already had a 2-5 pair in G, so we can't count the next one, but that's what happens next. A minor 7. And it, feels like it ought to go to G, but it doesn't. I mean, I think what happens in the tune is you just cycle around heading home. So maybe 3, 6, 2, 5, and then the whole thing starts again. Ellington's pushed us around. He's dropped us into 5 different sort of key levels. It is diabolical. It's so clever. It's so effective. And it's not a bad way to learn a bunch of 2-5 pairs. You just learned 5. I guess in the major, there's only 7 more, right? Listen, this shows up in, like I said, the Beatles. For instance, this tune, Yesterday, McCartney's tune. So we just had this plaintive little melodic fall from 9 down to 1 in the key of C, Yesterday. And then the next thing that happens is 2-5, 1 to A minor. So that's B minor 7, E7, B minor 7, E7, 1, A minor. And the melody has the F sharp and the G sharp in it. In other words, it really affirms our new key level. I love that effect. Now, I just recently had occasion to play through a tune which is kind of essentially a soul progression. I noticed it was doing the same thing. The first chord is E minor, or maybe E minor 7. Let's say E minor 7. And then right away, a 2-5 pair. D minor 7, G7 to C. Sounds like we're in the key of C, but we don't stay there. We go right away to B7. And for those of you following along at home, B7, of course, is the 5 of E minor. The whole thing makes a really powerful cycle. E minor, D minor, to G7, to C, and then the 5 chord B of E, and the whole thing starts again. Recognize the song. You can use 2-5 pairs to slip freely around, and I'll show you my favorite trick with 2-5 pairs. Let's say I'm in the key of C, and I'm playing C major. My next chord, C minor 7, makes perfect sense from the C. It's a kind of a borrowed chord from the minor world, but I reframe it in my brain. I say, no, that's a 2 chord. That means F is the 5 chord, and B flat is the 1 chord. I just wound up transposing everything down a whole step. I went from the key of C major, and then once I start that C minor 7, F7, I am really in B flat. I could do it again. B flat minor 7 to E flat 7 would take me to A flat. And then let's go back home again to C. D minor 7 to G would take me home. 2-5 pairs are rooted in a Western classical tradition which privileges, if you will, the dominant tonic relationship. And yet, I'm not going to say that's the worst thing in the world. Sometimes the best way to sort of get the job done is to use harmony to push us around. I have sort of put aside dominant chords as functional elements in my music in the same way that many contemporary composers have. And you see it beginning in the beginning of the 20th century. Dominant chords just start to float around all by their little lonesomes. And yet there's still a place for it in lo-fi, in soul, in contemporary songwriting to create, sort of propulsive chord progressions that really feel like they've got something to say and have a little bit of juice to them. They're also fun to solo over. Grab almost any jazz chord chart or American songbook chord chart and take a look at the 2-5 pairs. Look for root motions that go in fourths. D to G to C, that's root motions in fourths. So E to A to D, root motions in fourths. Are the relationships like this? A minor 7 chord, a dominant chord, a major chord. That's a 2-5 pair leading home somewhere, leading you somewhere. It's part of the highway of the circle of fifths within a key signature. It's very powerful stuff. Well, I hope this has been useful. Like and subscribe. Get notifications. Leave me a comment. What are you guys doing right now? I'll see you next time.